sure.
Although Harsha can speak, there is a symbol there saying
Murphy. Somewhere sure.
okay. Does somebody know how to get rid of that symbol?
Fine.
Yeah, I tried all that. I think some key stuck.
Not stuck. Fine, I'll go ahead.
We can switch to another laptop. Laptop transfer slide.
Yeah, exactly.
We can try. Just going back to the audio. No joy.
Weird.
Try clicking on the volume icon, holding the option key.
Holding the option key, okay.
It's not working.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, there.
This one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Wait.
Now try to increase the volume. Try disconnecting and reconnecting the video viewer.
Yeah, click, click, click. See? Yeah, tried that. That doesn't help. I guess we'll just have to carry on.
I'll build. Hi guys. So basically, my name is Harsha BN. I'm not mute like this. So I'm from Flipkart. So today I'll be talking about some of the top JS hacks which we have done at flipkart.com. So basically, during the front-end development process, we face a lot of challenges, problems. So I'm going to talk some of the challenges and how we tackle them at Flipkart. So these hacks will be mainly revolving around website performance, improving the website performance, giving better experience to the users when it comes to website, and then some cross-browser compatibility issues. So to start with, so let me take, so this is the flipkart.com homepage. So if you see, we have a lot of images over here. As an e-commerce site, we need to have these images. So there are more than 100 images here, including the carousels, everything, recommendations. So all the images till they load, all the image load times add up to the page load time for the web page. So this was very bad because user has this sees this rotating icon in the tab of the browser till all the images load. And not necessarily all the users who end up on all the pages see all the images. It might be that some people go to the end, it might be some people get what they want at the beginning of the page and they navigate to a different page. So this was an issue, and most of a major chunk of the page load time goes in loading the images. So to solve this issue, we are actually loading the images only which are visible within the viewport. And as the user scrolls down, we load those images when they get into the viewport. So let me show a demo of it. So I'm opening the Chrome debugger tools in the network tab, going to the images tab, reloading the page. So you can actually see on slower internet connections, it will be much worse. So we load these images which are visible, and let me clear the images tab, and now let me scroll down. So you see that these images are dynamically loaded whenever the user scrolls down. So we gain a lot here because since we have a lot of images, we gain a lot in terms of page performance. So this is called lazy loading of images. So this improved our page median load times by about 10%, which is very good. And it benefits, whom it benefits a lot is the first time users who land up on your site. Because for frequent visitors, you already have these images cached. But for the first time users, you're simply loading the images even though the user might not end up seeing these images. So it helps the first time visitors a lot. And also lazy loading, a lot of people do lazy loading, but certain key points to keep in mind when you're actually doing lazy loading is that, so we use jQuery at Flipkart. So initially we tried writing a jQuery plugin which actually does the lazy loading. But if you use jQuery plugin, then you'll have to wait till the jQuery loads and then the plugin comes into action loading the images. What you can actually, for that particular reason, we chose a native JavaScript plugin which does the same thing, the lazy loading of images, and inlined it in the header. So that the plugin loads during the initial part of the page itself, and as soon as the images come, images register themselves for the lazy loading plugin. So this is the key point to note, because on every scroll, on every window scroll or resize, you would have to call a lazy loading function which would actually go through the DOM and get all the images and then see if every image is within the viewport and then load it. To avoid this, what this plugin does is, what we do is make the images register for it. So every image has a dummy src, which is a 1x1 GIF file. On the onload of it, the images register for this plugin, say that, okay, I need to be lazy loaded. So at every window scroll, the plugin goes through these registered images, and for each image it checks whether it needs to load, whether it is in the viewport and whether it needs to load, and then we load that particular image. So this image, actual image URL will be in a custom attribute within the image tag. That's how we do it. And yeah, one more interesting problem with binding heavy functions to scroll or resize handlers is that for every pixel scroll, these functions get executed, which is very heavy. So to avoid that, we do throttling. So in throttling, basically what it means that during an event, occurrence of the event, for example, in this case, the scroll event, instead of calling the function for every pixel scroll, make the function execute for every X milliseconds during the scroll. In that way, you are actually avoiding the jerky effects which might appear in some browsers because of functions getting called on every pixel scroll. So this is the function which does that. Throttling can be implemented in various ways, but this is one way which we are following. So basically, when you are attaching the event, you can say, for example, if you are attaching the scroll lazy loading function to the scroll of window.scroll can be throttle of the lazy load function and and the time delay which you need to call. So initially, we are having last call as 0. And this function returns a function which actually checks based on when was the last call made. If it was, if the last call was made in the last milliseconds, then it wouldn't execute it, it just returns. Otherwise, it updates the last call and calls the function. So this is how we can actually avoid the jittery effect which can happen with continuous function calls. And slightly different thing is called debounce. So this will be applicable and will be useful whenever you are making continuous Ajax calls on every event. For example, say you have an input box and for example search box, and user keeps typing. It might so happen that user is very fast in typing. As soon as he starts typing first character, you make on key press of it, say you make an Ajax call to the backend to get the auto suggest results to display to him. By that time, you might already have pressed the second key and third key, and he might have moved on. So it doesn't make sense to make an Ajax call in this case where the user is very fast. What makes sense is wait on key press when he stops typing after say X milliseconds. If he stops for X milliseconds, then make an Ajax call. So it's slightly different from throttling, that the function is called in throttling during the event for X milliseconds. In debounce, it is called after X milliseconds, after the event stops. So, sorry. So this is a function. So here it is very similar to the previous function, but it's a kind of set interval call there, and it's a set timeout call here. So whenever on every say key press, you are actually clearing out the timer, and the timer will not be cleared if there is that amount of gap as the delay, and then the function gets executed. In Flipkart, we are using this for infinite scrolling of pages. Most of our web pages, like search results and browse pages of products, we have so many products to be displayed. We just display the first X products, and the next X products will be loaded dynamically as the user scrolls down. For that in that particular case, we are using debounce. Next thing is the concept of JavaScript scriptlets. So I'll explain the term later, but we have HTML views with certain inline scripts which needs to be executed for this particular HTML. So say it is a modular thingy. So we want to reuse it for Ajax calls and non-Ajax calls, because these script tags needs to be executed in both the cases. And also we had a requirement that we have to schedule the JavaScript execution. We want to control when this JavaScript needs to be executed. We didn't want to execute the JavaScript as soon as it is inserted into the DOM. So for that case, what we did was, for the script tags, instead of using type text/JavaScript, we did something like this. So custom script types. So for example, in the first case, in the first example, we have type as text/JavaScript plus onload. So, and then later, actually, browsers don't execute these script tags, where you actually customize the type tags. Browsers just understand type is equal to text JavaScript and execute them. They don't do anything about these things, and they are just left in the DOM. So you can use this property to basically load them whenever you want. So this is a small function which is called run onload snippet. It gets all the elements with a custom type, say in this case text JavaScript plus onload, and for each of these script tags we evaluate the content within the script tag, that particular script tag, and we can do it whenever we want. For example, say if I want to do it on document ready, or if I want to do it on window onload, or if I want to call it after a certain delay, anything. And another use case here is not exactly use case. Say we have another implementation of this. If I say data src is a.js, anything.js, for example, if there is a data src attribute, we load this file first and then do the and then execute this particular code which exists in the scriptlet. This is one thing which we use in most of the places. I'll talk about it later. Okay. So let me show you. So this is one of the example of the scriptlets. So you can see that script type is text javascript fk_unload executed. This is for our carousel. So basically this scriptlet is actually loading the carousel and setting it up. So once we execute, we actually change the type to javascript plus fk_unload executed, so that it doesn't get executed again. And next thing, so in some pages of Flipkart, so basically if you see here, when I click, we have a loading thingy, and then we load the page and all the modules here are updated, and even the URL is updated. So, but this is made through a simple Ajax call. We make Ajax calls through iframes here. We wanted to simulate actual page refresh here, but at the same time we wanted to make simple Ajax call because we didn't want to fetch the entire HTML. But it should look like an actual page load. So the advantages we get here is that when we make calls through iframes, browsers actually display the status of the request. So waiting for so and so, sending request, whatever it is. And it's easy to cancel the request as well for user. He just needs to escape and the request is cancelled. And yep. So next thing. So with our okay. So this is our MP3 downloads library page. So we had a requirement that whenever user clicks on the download button for each of the song, it's not the URL is the download URL is dynamically generated. So we need to make a request to the server, and the server sends the download URL. So, but this process might take some time, and we wanted to let the user know that this is happening. So we need to show a loader somewhere. So showing the loader is easy. As soon as he clicks on the download button, we can start the loader. But when do we stop the loader and say that the download is already started? Download start is visible, very much visible, but we need to stop the loader. So this is how we solve the issue. Let me show how it happens first. So when I click on this, we show the loader. Yeah, so the download is starting and we stop loading. So how exactly this is happening? So what happens is backend, when it is actually redirecting to the download URL, it sets a cookie value with some key. In the front end, as soon as he clicks on the download button, JS starts polling for this particular cookie value to see whether it is set. So once it sees that it is set, it stops the loader. This is how the code goes. In the backend, processing happens and it sets the cookie, download started true, and redirects to the download URL. In the JavaScript side, we have a setInterval function which actually keeps polling for the cookie for every 100 milliseconds, and as soon as it sees that cookie value is set, it sets it to null and clears the interval, and it hides the loader. Okay, next one. So basically in IE6, 7 and IE8 in Quicks mode, the problem is that say you have a drop-down menu. Drop-down menu which has a lot of items, but drop-down menu's height is actually fixed. Say it is a div and it has a scroll bar because it has a lot of items to be displayed. we ran into a scenario where on blur of the drop-down menu, we need to hide the drop-down menu. So we attached the onBlur event on this particular div and made the div close. But the problem is, whenever the user wants to scroll the drop down, he clicks on the scroll bar. IE actually detects scroll bar as not as part of the div, and it calls the blur event, which is very bad, which Firefox and other browsers don't do. So the only solution here is that we started using document.activeElement. So this property, this DOM property is very unique to IE browsers, and now it has been used by Firefox and other browsers as well. So whenever document.activeElement contains the currently focused element in the document, though when I click on the scroll bar, though the blur event is fired, document.activeElement a value is not changed. So we make use of that property to get the focus back on the element. So this is one of the hacks. And then I think some of you might already know about this, but this is very unpopular. So people see Google Analytics as a tool which actually collects the information about the page views and mostly numbers. But Google Analytics has something called events, where you can actually pass in some messages to Google Analytics and Google stores it for you. So we can actually use that to our advantage in logging JS errors. So JS errors are very difficult to spot, and it might happen in very unforeseen scenarios in the production, and it depends on the flow which the user is following, and it's very difficult to test all the flows during development. And errors can also happen because of the user installed plugins, the browser extensions. So such errors you can actually log to GA. It's not real time, but it's free. So this is a code which we use. Window.onError. Whenever an error happens, onError takes these parameters, message, file, and line. We create a message and we push it to Google Analytics. Okay. Apart from these things, what I spoke about, there are other stuff which we do. These are basically for page performance, some of them, website performance. So we can actually move ads and Ajax calls to after onload to get better page load times. Ads generally tend to delay the onload event being fired. So this helps a lot. And the next one is for Flipkart MP3 downloads, we started using a different font to give a better user experience. But these custom web fonts are very huge in size. They are more than 200 KB in general, and which was very heavy for us to load on the client side, which will slow down the rendering of the HTML. So there is this awesome website called fontsquirrel.com, where you actually can subset the font, adjust the font properties. There are several font properties you can actually change and get the font file size down. So subsetting the font basically means that you retain the characters what you need on your web page and get rid of all the other characters. So basically we were able to get down the file size from 200 KB plus to 20 to 30 KB. It is that much effective. And the other thing is better grouping of JS files for caching advantage. People generally group all the JS files into a single file, which is called combo handling, to get or to optimize performance, because it's a single HTTP request. So what we started doing was, there are certain libraries like jQuery and other plugins which we use, we don't generally change. So we group this into one particular group, and all the other JS files which we write and which commonly change into another group. So here actually you can get a caching advantage because there is no change in libraries generally. It might happen once in 6 months or so. So that this better grouping can actually be very advantageous since you're not loading the libraries again and again when you change some JavaScript file of what you write. And next thing is versioning of JS CSS files. Till some time back, we were actually doing this manual updating of the version numbers for JS CSS files. I think most of us generally do that. But recently, we started auto versioning of JS CSS files during the build process. So basically, what we do is for every JS group, we take the content, MD5 it, and take the first 6 digits of the MD5 hash and use it as the version number. So it's a better way of doing rather than going and manually incrementing the version numbers. So yeah, that's it from my side. Any questions? No questions?
Question? The scriptlet part, I'm not sure about the details, but it looks like your can run into security issues, like you're evaluating a script in the context of
So
another
basically, we are not using the eval directly.
No, even otherwise, the same origin policy and all. I need to think about it in detail, but gut feel is there is something wrong with that approach. So have you evaluated it from a security point of view?
Yes, yes, we have evaluated. So basically what we are doing here is we are not using any eval kind of thingy, and we are not using any user, or we are not using this wherever there is user data. So basically we create a script tag, dump the data there, and execute it and remove the script tag immediately in the head. So I don't think it's as good as having the script tag execute when it is put into the DOM.
I don't know. I can inject another script tag with my content, which has that JavaScript dot window on load. And when you evaluate, you would evaluate my content also in the context of your script block, which gives me access to the page and all that. I'm not very sure about the detail, but I feel that there is something which needs to be looked at more closely. Now, how do you differentiate your script tag versus some other script tag that has the same type?
So we have a check. We have checks for that. We have escape functions which take care of both.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Two questions actually. The window.on error for the handling of errors via Google Analytics, isn't that a catch-all error? So for example, let's say an error happened for your Ajax call for a particular section of a page. Then even if that Ajax returned an error,
so it will be on the window, right? So whenever error happens on the window in the window scope, that will be captured by on error.
No, that's okay. But what I mean is, say you wanted a more granular level of control.
Like, I didn't get you.
Like you say, for example, let's say you have an Ajax call, and let's say you have an event handler where something went wrong in the script.
Okay.
Now both will be captured by the window.on error. Say if you wanted to have a granular level of control on those two, either you will need to pass some parameterized data to your Google.
So this is for basic error handling. For example, it's not an extensive thing. Basically, you can use it. It's freely available. For example, say some plugin is creating some problem with your website, then it helps, right? It's just for that basic stuff.
Just basic error handling. Okay. And can you please elaborate on your build process, like how you do the builds for the site?
For the JS and CSS? So basically during the build process we actually combo handle the files, combine the files with proper groupings, and then we minify it and then push it to our CDNs. So that was what you were expecting, or did I answer?
I don't know if you do something else as well.
Yeah, we can take it offline, like probably.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, in that case, let's thank all the speakers. And right now we are breaking for half an hour for tea and coffee, which you'll find